Hello, this is Jordan Maxfield, and I'm going to be finally getting around to my long overdue film analysis of the movie Carnal Knowledge. I'm going to do a quick plot summary, and then I'm going to go into how the cast and the content of the movie both played a role in, the sexual revolution that we kind of talked about in class in the 60s and 70s, and also the connections to popular culture. So, for a quick plot summary, hopefully quick, we have this movie that's based on these two guys. One of them is the romantic, monogamous, sweet, insecure, I guess, guy, Sandy, played by Art Garfunkel, and then we have the suave, charismatic, sex-obsessed asshole played by Jack Nicholson. So basically, it follows these two men as they get older and pursue relationships in the way that they feel is the right way, I guess. And I just thought this content was really interesting in the fact that it's based on this imagined socially constructed sexual dichotomy that still, I feel, very much exists today. Like, men have to choose between being romantic and prudish and monogamous, or openly sexual and charismatic and stuff like that. So that's really interesting. I still feel it's very relevant today. This movie came out in 1971, so right in the middle of this sexual revolution that we kind of discussed in class. This movie, fun fact, this movie was the first movie to show a condom, which more controversy will come later, but it wasn't the first to mention a condom, but it's the first to show it. So, to talk about the cast a little bit, or no, we're going to talk about the director first because he's super interesting. So the director was Mike Nichols, and he also was the director of The Graduate, which some other people did for their film analysis. Another very controversial movie. It's on Netflix today. It's very popular it's referenced to still today in popular culture. The Graduate is, and yeah. So Mike Nichols, this is kind of how he met Art Garfunkel. Was because Simon and Garfunkel, the duo group that he was a part of, the guy who played Sandy, he hit that group, sang most of the album, I think, for The Graduate, and wrote a lot of the songs, and in particular Mrs. Robinson. It's a pretty famous song. People still listen to it today. It's a good song. So yeah, Mike Nichols went from The Graduate to Carnal Knowledge. It was these two very controversial movies. Not really sure why or what movies he did after and if they were as controversial, but he was known at the time for, making movies that were kind of out there and taking risks and chances and stuff, so that was cool. So we have the two main guys, Jack Nicholson and Art Garfunkel. Jack Nicholson, right after Carnal Knowledge, would become super famous for his role in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and also Stephen King's The Shining. This was not his first breakout role, but it was one of those roles that kind of rounded him as an actor, and people saw that he could play a more maybe mentally unstable is what you want to call him, and suave, and that kind of guy, which you kind of will see later in his other works. He also played the Joker in one of the older Batman movies, which was really good. So yeah, Jack Nicholson, still alive today, still kicking it. So as Art Garfunkel, he was part of the really popular singing duo group Simon and Garfunkel. They are known for Bridge Over Troubled Water and of course Mrs. Robinson. They were on a 3-year break, hiatus type thing, and so Art Garfunkel was in Carnal Knowledge, the movie adaptation of Catch-22, and he was also a high school math teacher, which is kind of funny, because if you watch Carnal Knowledge and then imagine people who saw the movie and then had him as a math teacher, it's kind of strange. But anyway, he was smart and he was really talented, and yeah, those are the men. And these two are actually still really good friends today. At Jack Nicholson's house, apparently he has like an Art Garfunkel suite that's just for him, which I think is really cute. So then we have the ladies. So we have Candice Bergen, who is still alive today. I knew her from being the evil pageant person on Miss Congeniality with Sandra Bullock, and found out this was her. She went on to star in her own show called Murphy, and she's a political activist. She was on the campaign advising committee for George McGovern pre-Watergate. It's kind of one of her connections to some of the popular culture events that were to come. She was either married or engaged to this record producer, and they lived in a specific house that would become, I'll explain later, but it becomes important. She plays Sandy's first wife, like his first love, his first kiss, his first feel up, whatever. Like the sweet, down-to-earth, blonde, pretty girl. And then we have Anne Margaret, who was already kind of an established sex symbol for the time, I guess. And she had been in a movie with Elvis Presley and sang like 4 duets with him. Okay, anyway. Her and Elvis actually were rumored to have an affair. I couldn't find out if it was exactly true or not, but it was probably true. She was like the sex symbol, one of the sex symbols of the time, and Elvis Presley was Elvis Presley. So yeah, that was kind of her connection. She was born in Sweden, and she sang and she acted. This was kind of her like testing the waters in acting, and there's this scene with her and Jack Nicholson that just is great. It's really, really good. So yeah. So now we are going to go into more of the popular culture connections that the cast has. Most noticeably, so Candice Bergen, as I mentioned before, she lived in this house with her fiance or husband or whatever, and so they moved out, and Sharon Tate and Roman Pavlinsky, I think is his name, he was a director at the time, they moved in, and a little while after they moved in, when Roman, the director, was out, Charles Manson and his cult came and they committed that infamous mass murder of Sharon Tate and a bunch of her friends at this house that Candice Bergen lived in. And so obviously the popular culture reference there is the Charles Manson murders. Notorious still today. Gruesome images in that house. None of it was tied to Candice Bergen. They don't think that Charles Manson was supposed to go after Candice Bergen and her fiance or husband or whatever. But anyway, so turns out that the husband of Sharon Tate, that director, was one of Jack Nicholson's best friends. They had worked on a movie together. Don't remember which one, but they were really, really close. And so Jack was there for Roman and helped him through all of that, because I imagine that would have been really hard as a husband and a person in general. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of that connection. And then also there's a legal popular culture connection here. So during this time there had already been these standards for movies set about obscenity laws and like what you could and couldn't show and could not talk about, and we kind of discussed some of that in class. Let's adjust this quick. But Carnal Knowledge came out, and then this guy in Georgia, this guy named Jenkins, he played this movie in Georgia, and some people heard about it, and they got really, really mad, and they either like tried to shut down his movie theater or got him fired or something like that. Anyway, so Jenkins ends up suing the state of Georgia, and it ends up going to the Supreme Court. And in 1972, the Supreme Court changes or expands the laws on what movies can show and talk about, and like what you can play in theaters and stuff like that. So before this, there was like the Miller standard, I think is what it's called. And yeah, this is the case that expanded the Miller standard. Yeah. Basically, the thing was that there were scenes of nudity, but they didn't actually show any, like, anything too scandalous, I guess. Like, you could, like, it was just enough so that you could infer that the character was naked. But they didn't show actual, like, graphic nudity. Technically, that's what the court said. And there were also scenes where, like, you knew sexual acts were happening, or there was impending sexual acts about to happen, but since they didn't actually show it happening, or, you know, said anything about it happening, it was okay. So that was kind of how that kind of made people mad, and how that influenced the legal courts, and that's how you get movies like 50 Shades of Grey. I guess that's kind of a reach, but, you know, yeah, that's how that happened. So that is Carnal Knowledge's content and cast. That's a lot of C's. Cast and content cultural connections. That's what I'm going to call it. Alliteration is fun. So, yeah, hope you enjoyed. Sorry it's so late. Yeah, go watch Carnal Knowledge. It's a really great movie. Talks a lot about, gives you a lot of insight on kind of the sexual revolution that we talked about, and what the tensions were at the time, and all of the pop cultural references, and it's a really fascinating cast and movie. So, yeah, thanks for watching.